think I'm going to go to Stones River National Battlefield and maybe do some walking on some of the trails that they have there.
Although Stones River National Battlefield focuses on history, there are miles and miles of trail to walk or bike on, even if you are not into history. And it also connects to the Murfreesboro Greenway. They are open daily from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. The park and museum are completely free to enter. The Battle of Stones River is noted for having the highest percentage of casualties on both sides of the battle during the war. The war that I'm talking about is the Civil War. It lasted from April 12, 1861 to May 26, 1865, for a total of 1,865 days.
So if you are interested in hiking, there's several different trails that they have. The Battlefield Loop is 2.2 miles, the Boundary Trail is 2.8 miles, and the Greenway Connector Trail is 1.4 miles. And I also picked up their family activities book. I think I'm going to do this. So it has 5 different stops that you make, and you do a couple activities at each of the stops.
The 4-year conflict was fought between the United States government, known as the Union, and the Confederate States of America, which consisted of a coalition of 11 southern states that seceded from the Union. There is a self-guided auto tour as well as cell phone audio tour.
Enjoy your visit to Stones River National Battlefield.
So I've decided to do this. I dialed that number and
enter your stop number now, or call us back when you're ready.
And we are at stop number 2.
The rocks before you in the woods were the scene of fierce fighting on December 31st, 1862. General James Negley's division of the Union Army fell back into these rocks, which provided a natural defensive position when General Rosecrans ordered them to hold and delay the Confederate onslaught. With General Philip Sheridan's division covering their rear, Negley's men withstood several attacks between 10 and 11:30 in the morning. At noon, a massive Confederate attack organized by General A.P. Stewart and 4 other Confederate commanders shattered Sheridan's line, leaving Negley's division surrounded on 3 sides. Negley's men continued to fight, but mounting casualties and the danger of being surrounded finally forced them to retreat. As they tried to run from the rocks, Confederate fire piled the dead and wounded in heaps. The rocks were covered in blood and gore. Red rivulets ran down through the cracks and pooled in low spots. Soldiers who survived this bloody fight aptly named this place Slaughter Pen. 40% of Negley's and Sheridan's divisions have become casualties. Their adversaries did not fare much better. The cost of this delaying action was high, but for the Union, it was worth it. More than 1/3 of the Confederate Army had been halted for 2 hours, buying General Rosecrans time to build a new defensive position along the Nashville Pike that would turn the tide of battle.
Enter your stop number now, or press *0 to leave us your feedback.
It says stay on trail. Looks like you can go that way too, but I think this is the loop we're doing.
Here's a PSA. I do not think that the numbers listed on the tour are in driving order. They are in order as they happened, and 2 of the stops are a short drive from here.
There's the stones. The trail's not marked very well. Well, it's just not easy to see. Can you imagine how horrific that scene looked after all of the deaths? I don't know. I guess we'll go to the left. Oh, that's the Boundary Trail off to the right, so we'll stay to the left.
Major fighting at Stones River Battlefield took place from December 31st, 1862 to January 2nd, 1863.
There's a cannon. Sheridan saves the day. It's a beautiful day.
Following the intense 3-day battle, the Confederate Army withdrew January the 3rd, 1863, leaving the Union in control.
I think we'll probably go left.
Stones River National Battlefield officially became a government operation on March 3, 1927, when President Calvin Coolidge signed legislation establishing it as Stones River National Military Park. It was initially managed by the War Department before transferring to the National Park Service in 1933.
There's another good view of the stones. Not sure how well it shows in the video. There's a cannon. It looks more like a replica. I don't think it's a real antique, but it could be. Just taking a second to think about all the men that lost their lives here. So this is stop number 3, and it says Cedars Trail.
Powered by Onsell. Welcome
So
back to the
it
tour.
says this one is 0.25 miles.
Stop number now, or press star 0 to leave us your feedback.
Around 1 o'clock in the afternoon on December 1st, the Confederate brigade of James Rains emerged from the woods ahead of you. Across these fields, they could see their objective, the Nashville Pike. If they could reach that road, they could cut the Federals off from their last remaining route of supply or escape. Between the Confederates and the road stood long lines of soldiers in blue with muskets at the ready. Union cannon covered the slope between the road and railroad, waiting to unleash their deadly contents. General Rosecrans had used the time well that Negley and Sheridan had bought him in the slaughter pen. This 2-mile-long line, shaped like a horseshoe, would force the Confederates to make frontal assaults against massed artillery and infantry to sever the Union lifeline. Rains' men were tired, hungry, and out of ammunition, but they were ready for one last charge. Within seconds of leaving the trees, Rains was killed. His men were pummeled from all directions and gave way in a matter of minutes. More and more Confederate units arrived as the day wore on, and ever larger attacks surged toward the pike. Each time, the Union artillery beat back the gray tide. A lieutenant from Texas recalled, "The artillery opened to us and cut the timber over our heads, and it seemed that the heavens and earth were coming together." Without support from their cannon, every Confederate attack failed. The Union lifeline remained open, and chances for complete Confederate victory faded along with the last rays of the setting sun.
Enter your stop number now.
This far but not farther. For 6 hours, the Confederates had been on the attack.
Okay, I am pretty curious to know if the cannons that are on site here are real cannons or if they are replicas. So I'm going to Google it. So according to Google, the cannon barrels or tubes on display out on the battlefield are authentic Civil War originals, though they may not have all been fired at this exact site. Because wood rots over time, the wooden carriages supporting them are modern reproductions.
I think that is some springless honey mushrooms.
The functioning cannons used by rangers and volunteers for live firing demonstrations are also modern, highly accurate replicas built for safety.
So I'm going to walk back through the trail to get back to the vehicle. Walk the tree line where Confederates paused before their final attacks on December 31st, 1862. Back to Cedar Trail trailhead. So it looks like the greenway is over that way, and then you can also get to Slaughter Pen that way, and this direction for the visitors. Okay, we are at stop number 4, but it's actually number 1 on family activities. Okay, it says, go to the cannon near the road at the Chicago Board of Trade Battery. Find the trunnion circled in yellow below and answer the following questions. This trail can also be used for bicycles.
Enter your stop number now,
Pioneer
or press star 0 to leave us your
Brigade.
feedback.
Earthworks Trail.
Shouts of "Give them hell" rose from the Union troops who fought on this ground December 31st, 1862. The Confederates were breaking through the tree line onto this field, and it was the soldiers of the Pioneer Brigade and the Chicago Board of Trade Battery who drove them back. The Pioneer Brigade was a Union Army experiment. Two of the best soldiers from each infantry company would form this brigade. These men had not trained together, nor had they ever worked together. Yet so desperate was the situation that General Rosecrans had to rely on these engineers to stop the rebel tide. Midday, December 31st, the Confederates attacked the Union troops 3 times. The Confederates got within 50 yards of the Union line before being repulsed. The Union countercharged, and the line moved forward about a quarter mile to a low ridge, which they had lost earlier in the day. The Chicago Board of Trade Battery fired nearly 1,300 rounds into their attackers during the fight. A Union sergeant of the Pioneer Brigade recalled, "The rebel flag, seen dimly through the smoke and trees, wavered, started forward, and then surged back. Yes, there was no mistake about it. It was going back." The Chicago Board of Trade Battery and the Pioneer Brigade were tested and proved their worth as they held the Nashville Pike.
Enter your stop number now, or press star.
Oh well, this sign says we're now at number 7, so I guess we'll do that one. Sorry, they are not in order.
Welcome back to the tour. Enter your stop number now, or
Some expressed doubt about Captain James St. Clair Morton's idea for the Pioneer Brigade. Units were usually comprised of soldiers who grew up together and knew each other. Before the Battle of Stones River, Captain Morton proposed to Union General Rosecrans the creation of a unit using soldiers from different regiments. This unit, called the Pioneer Brigade, would serve as combat engineers during battle. How could men who did not know each other effectively fight in battle? The Pioneer Brigade proved their value in the Battle of Stones River. Captain Morton ordered construction of these works sometime after a desperate Confederate flank attack tried to break through the right side of his line December 31st, 1862. Morton insisted that creating these earthworks was necessary to strengthen his position for future attacks. The pioneers stacked the muskets that had repulsed numerous attacks and once again picked up their tools. The earthworks were completed but never attacked. General Rosecrans sang praises for the efforts of the Pioneer Brigade, calling them gallant in behavior and stating that both officers and men deserve special public notice and thanks. Please do not walk on the earthworks, as they have survived 150 years and are the only known field fortifications that remain on the battlefield.
enter your stop number now.
So back to the stand fast questions. I'm thinking this might be the one, but it don't look exactly like it does in the picture. I think there's my answers. And there's the answer to digging in on activity number 2. Not sure if I got a picture of the sign with the animals for the activity on number 3. And there's where the answers are for activity number 5. It's behind the visitor center. And the one for the activity 4, the Trail of Tears, is off to the left behind the visitor center. And we got all of these really nice cards for completing that family activity. So you have to get on the road and you turn here for stop number 1. You don't actually access it straight from the visitor center. Well, I think there are some trails you might could take that comes over to it, but I don't really know how to access it. So I'm driving. I wasn't sure, but I came back to make sure. It is parking. And I believe this lane is for bicycle. Eve of battle.
So I was curious about the live demonstrations, and it looks like they are primarily held on select weekends and special anniversaries. While daily ranger programs run heavily in the summer, weapons demonstrations are generally limited to once or twice a month and feature prominently during events like the Battle of Stones River anniversary in late December.
Powered by OnSound. Welcome to the store. Enter your stop number now or call us back when you're ready.
On the bitter cold, drizzly day after Christmas, 1862, Union General William Rosecrans's army marched from Nashville to Murfreesboro, where Confederate General Braxton Bragg's army had established their winter camp. President Lincoln demanded that Rosecrans move on the Confederates, so Rosecrans marched on to Murfreesboro to win the victory for Lincoln. Rosecrans planned his attack for New Year's Eve of 1862. General Bragg also planned to attack on New Year's Eve. Both armies spent the day before the battle developing their battle plans and forming their battle lines. As nightfall approached, the men on both sides tried to settle in for the night. No campfires were allowed that night on either side in order to conceal positions. Union soldiers camped on a cold, damp ground where you stand now. Anxieties and fears were as prevalent in the soldiers' dreams as were the memories of loved ones back at home. Private P.R. Jones from Texas described how he spent his night before the battle. When nightfall came, we were in a lane with rail fences on each side about 400 yards from the enemy. Our orders were to speak only in a whisper, as the enemy's pickets were not more than 100 yards in front, the plan of battle being to take them by surprise the next morning. Soldiers anxiously waited through the freezing night, anticipating the battle would be fought the next day. For many soldiers that camped that night, it would be their last.
Enter your stop number now or call us back when you're ready.
That was an eerie last sentence. And way in the distance is the cemetery. Turns the tide. So I'm not sure if you can see in the distance where that tractor is and where my truck is, where the glass is shining. That is stop number 1. And just ahead of us, where there are some humans walking, that was stop number 3. There's actually a paved crosswalk through there, but it was not mentioned on the sign. I don't think that stop number 1 was over there. So this path over here is the one that we just came up. That's from the parking area for stop number 1. And this was the parking area for stop number 3, the Cedar Trail. But the signs didn't mention anything about spot number 1 being over there. It shows tour stop number 2 being that direction, but not number 1. Oh well. Back to the truck. Even though a lot of devastation happened on these grounds, it has been an awesome experience getting to get out and walk. It's a beautiful day to do this. After the Civil War, 4 million formerly enslaved people took charge of their own lives. They began to exercise their right and start their own communities. They built homes, schools, churches, and businesses. For the first time, black men and women could own property. Waiting anxiously for tomorrow's fate. Take another moment just to think about what it was like to spend your night over here and thinking that this might be your last night. And for many it was their last night. I think 2,970 something men died during the Battle of Stones River. Let me Google it. 1,677 Union and 1,294 Confederate soldiers. with the combined numbers of soldiers killed, wounded, and missing exceeding 23,000. Wow. So I guess all of that land over there is part of the National Battlefield too. McFadden Farm. Here's the entrance to the McFadden Farm section. It's not connected to the main part over by the visitor center. So we've made it to stop number 6, which I thought was kind of hard to find, but it was off of Highway 70. Oops. I think I'm gonna go check the monument out.
Welcome back to the... Enter your stop number now, or...
At dawn, January 2nd, 1863, Confederate General Braxton Bragg woke to discover that Union forces had entrenched themselves on a key hill on the east side of Stones River. If the Federals placed cannon on that hill, they could threaten Confederate positions along the Nashville Pike. Bragg ordered General John Breckinridge and his 4,400-man division to reclaim the hill. Breckinridge protested, knowing that dozens of Union cannon massed on the west bank of the river could cut his men to pieces. But Bragg's decision was final. Breckinridge relayed the order to his subordinates. Soon they were restraining General Roger Hanson, commander of the Confederate Orphan Brigade, who vowed to kill Bragg for issuing such a murderous command. Breckinridge ordered his men to load their muskets and fix bayonets. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, they moved forward, hoping the failing light would interfere with the Union cannoneers' aim. As they got closer, their pace quickened and the rebel yell echoed over the field. The initial charge appeared successful. Breckinridge's men pushed the Federals off the hill and pursued them toward McFadden's Ford before you. The ground shook as 57 Union cannon fired their deadly missiles into the mass of Confederates. The cannon fire was nonstop. In an hour, more than 1,800 Confederates were killed or wounded. Breckinridge's men retreated as fresh Union troops surged across the river to retake the high ground. This was the final action of the Battle of Stones River. Bragg ordered a withdrawal, and the Union gained the hard-earned victory that shaped the political and military course of the Civil War.
It looks like there is a trail that's paved. There was an access point to the trail, I believe, on the other side of the monument.
Oh, I bet this is part of the Greenway.
It's very nice out here. So I wonder if that goes to the water.
Squirrel! Boy, I can get easily distracted.
McFadden's Ford. There's the water. This is nice. I'm glad I decided to come on down to stop number 6. McFadden's Farm. I wonder if you can kayak or paddleboard this.
Sorry, it looks like I got distracted by the beautiful scenery.
So I'm pretty sure this is part of the Greenway. That looks like a boat ramp, boat launch.
I do promise that I shortly get back to the battlefield.
Gorgeous. So I think the Greenway continues on that direction. So this is the Thompson Lane trailhead for the Greenway. Okay, I have ventured off from my original task and I'm heading back to the truck.
Sorry about that, but this is my adventure. McFadden Farm was owned by Holly McFadden, a widow with 14 children who was an outspoken opponent of secession. Her farm was devastated during the battle and she spent the rest of her life unsuccessfully seeking compensation from the U.S. government for her losses.
Back to the Battle of Stones River. With it being in December, I doubt that it had any of this kind of foliage. I wonder what it was actually like though. I wonder how mature the trees were and how tall the grasses and plant life may have been.
The temperature hovered at or just below freezing.
We are going to try to get to Hazen Brigade Monument, which is stop number 5 on the auto tour. U.S. National Cemetery. I feel like it's taken me a year to get here, but I finally made it to stop number 5. And this location isn't too far from stop number 1, which is right over there. And the visitor center is just down the road.
Enter your stop number now, or
Hundreds of men fought and perished December 31st, 1862, where you stand. The carnage was so great that the men who survived named this place Hell's Half Acre. Union Colonel William Hazen's brigade defended the Nashville Pike here at the Round Forest. They were the only unit of the Union line who held their position during 4 Confederate charges. The attacks began mid-morning. Several Confederate brigades charged the Union troops. Corporal McGee from Mississippi described the wild and chaotic scene. Then commenced the most terrible cannonading I ever witnessed. The cannons were belching forth their deadly contents at once, while thousands of small arms kept up a roar equal to the falls of Niagara. Men were swept down by hundreds. Trees, shrubs, and everything were torn up, cut off, or shivered. Hazen's men were the anchor point of the Union line that halted the Confederate tide before it reached the Nashville Pike. After the battle, Hazen's men constructed this monument to commemorate their fight in Hell's Half Acre. The Hazen Brigade Monument is the oldest intact Civil War monument in the nation.
enter your stop number now, or press *0 to leave us your feedback.
Google kept trying to get me to turn around where that blue and white building is. It tried to take me to the back side. I wonder who was buried on the inside. It looks like there's some grave sites outside of the boundary walls. Slave, soldier, citizen. A tombstone can only tell you so much about the life of a man. It says trail exhibit. I really don't think this is leading to anywhere. Although I don't know really where this trail leads you to. It's still a nice trail. You do have a lot of industrial sounds in the background, but it's still fairly flat, fairly level ground. And it looks like we're about to the end of the trail. And where have we landed? Right outside the cemetery. In battle, good men die. So, I think what's going on here, stop number 1 is there, and they've probably created this trail so that you could walk over to spot number 5. And there's railroad tracks. Alrighty, time to head back onto the trail to get back to the truck. There goes the train. Or a train. I'm glad I walked the trail and figured out what it was probably for.
To take a moment to thank everyone that has served in the military and their families for their service. If you are ever in the Middle Tennessee area, consider giving Stones River National Battlefield and Murfreesboro Greenway a visit. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!